The story begins in Bristol, England on Christmas Eve. The town is fully decorated, and we see a man dressed as Santa drinking himself to stupor. He jokes with another Santa while criticizing children and their consumer behavior. Before leaving, he drops a gift for the bartender's grandson and heads towards the roof. She wonders aloud how he knows that she has a grandson and chases after him. Up top, she's amazed to see 8 flying reindeer pulling Santa's sleigh through the beautiful night sky. And at that point, she realizes that he is the real Santa. However, old Saint Nick has had a bit too much to drink. In Greenwich, Connecticut, another man, Jason Lightstone, is waiting in the snow. His estranged wife, Linda, and daughter, Trudy, pick him up. They drive to Jason's mother's house. The view of a grand mansion comes into sight. At the gate, they acknowledge the gatekeeper, Al. Inside the house, employees are bubbling around to get the decorations and house in order. We see certain employees looking very suspicious. One of them keeps checking his watch. Later, we meet Jason's sister, Alva. She is present with her boyfriend, Morgan, a failing actor, and her son, Bert, a social media-obsessed teen. The tension between Jason and Alva and everyone else in the room is evident as they take indirect jabs at one another. They all seem to be vying for their mother's favor because of her financial capabilities. Their mother, Gertrude, walks into the living room, and they all begin to suck up to her. In totally unrelated circumstances, we see Santa begrudgingly delivering presents from house to house and criticizing the milk and cookies set out for him. When it's Trudy's bedtime, she sets out personalized cookies for Santa, and she complains to her parents of not being able to meet up with Santa that year to make her request. Her father forges a gift of a walkie-talkie for her and tells her that it's a direct line to Santa, which is a lie. When they leave the room, she wishes for her parents to get back together, and they overhear her. Jason tries to talk to Linda about it, but she wants no part of it. Santa lands on the Lightstone house and complains about the reindeer taking dumps on the roof, calling them unprofessional. Once in the house, Santa tastes the cookies and instantly likes them. Suddenly, inside the house, the Wi-Fi is turned off by all the security, and some of the household staff are executed. The armed robbers begin their operation. All the members of the Lightstone family are rounded back to the sitting room while the robbers search for any remaining people. Santa Claus, who is still in the house, tries to use magic to get onto the roof, but it doesn't work and he encounters one of the henchmen. They fight and tussle, and Santa Claus throws him out of the window, landing on a giant icicle. Santa Claus sees that upon the ruckus, his reindeers have flown away. He gathers his things and starts to walk away until he sees Trudy, and then goes back. Gertrude challenges the leader of the gang, Mr. Scrooge. He quickly puts her in her place. Then he reveals the reason for the heist: $300 million in a vault in the house which belongs to Gertrude that she stole from the American government. She tells him that she has an extraction team coming to save her. He tells her that he is fully aware. Soon after, Santa is accosted by another henchman. They fight and struggle, and Santa finally finishes him by stuffing the Star of Christmas light in his eye and then electrocuting him until his head catches fire. Trudy calls into her walkie-talkie, and it just happens to catch the signal of the other walkie-talkie near Santa. They talk, and Santa promises to come rescue her. Mr. Scrooge sees in the security cameras that there is a Santa running around the house. He decides to ask the Lightstone family who hired a Santa. No one knows anything about a Santa. Mr. Scrooge decides to torture one member of the family to get their lips loose. Alva suggests that Jason be tortured because he is their mother's favorite child. He uses a nutcracker to torture Jason's finger, but he doesn't know anything. He then decides to use a bigger nutcracker, this time on his nuts, but before he can do that, Trudy stands up to defend her father. Jason tells her that there is no such thing as Santa Claus. She gets angry and runs off to the attic where she talks to Santa on a walkie-talkie, who is stitching up himself. He tells her about his past, how he was a hammer-wielding warrior, a thief, and on the naughty list. Meanwhile, one of the henchmen forces the family to open up their gifts early in case they do not make it to the next morning. Morgan gives Gertrude a self-centered gift. Jason gives Gertrude her favorite whiskey and a note that she does not reveal its content to anyone. Elsewhere, Santa encounters the henchwoman who traps him in a room until the others arrive. They tie up Santa and burn his bag of toys. It's now that Mr. Scrooge talks about what made him hate Christmas. Turns out he had a horrible experience on Christmas. As a child, Santa calls them all by their first names, leading them to believe he is the real Santa. But Mr. Scrooge wants to put a bullet in his head. However, they are interrupted by the arrival of the extraction team. However, we quickly find out that our heroes have actually betrayed Gertrude and are actually working with Mr. Scrooge. They shoot at Santa on the roof, forcing him to jump off and run into a cabin. Mr. Scrooge and Mr. Thorpe, the head of the extraction team, open up the vault to find it empty. They go to the sitting room to question the family members. He asks them and threatens to shoot everyone if they do not tell him who took the money from the vault. During this time, over in the cabin, Santa is rushed by the extraction team, forcing him to rely on his old swordsman skills, allowing him to slice up and annihilate the entire squad. Back in the home, we realize that it was Jason who stole the money, and the note that he gave his mother disclosed that he stole it. Trudy, however, is up to some real Home Alone type stuff and booby traps the house, injuring 2 of the henchmen. Santa joins her to finish off the female. The baddies take Jason and Gertrude outside to get the hidden money. After they have taken the money, they ask the henchmen inside to shoot the hostages. Linda, Bert, and Alva overpower their captor and begin hitting him with fire pokers before Alva eventually stabs him in the neck. Santa comes to the sitting room with Trudy. They make a plan, and Linda takes a gun to start shooting the extraction team. Mr. Thorpe and Mr. Scrooge take the money and drive off on snowmobiles, but Santa follows them. He meets Scrooge, who sets a trap for him, and he drives into a cabin and crashes. Scrooge then shoots at the cabin. He picks up Santa's scroll and realizes that he is the real Santa. This angers him even more, and Mr. Scrooge begins to fight with Santa. A fire ignites an explosion, blowing them both out of the building. They continue fighting until Santa rubs his nose and they go up a chimney, severing Mr. Scrooge. But as Santa stands on the roof laughing, he is shot in the chest and stomach by Thorpe, who is then shot by Gertrude. Trudy is crying and asking him to stay alive. Santa complains of the cold and says that he hasn't felt cold in a really long time. Santa gives up the ghost. Trudy then says that she believes that Santa is real and asks all her family members to concur. And as they do, Santa comes back to life in a Christmas miracle. They all look in the sky and see Santa's sleigh and reindeers. Santa scolds the reindeers for leaving him, but then realizes that they went home to get his extra sack. He gets into his sleigh bidding them goodbye, and he rides off into the night sky.